Sharpening knives is easy if you have the right equipment and the right technique. But what if you're not getting good results? What are you doing wrong? Well, let's go over some common knife sharpening mistakes and how to fix them. Okay, to start out with, number one, using the incorrect sharpening angle. If you're using the wrong angle for your knife, you won't get the result you want. So first of all, the more narrow the angle, the sharper the edge, right? However, the wider the angle, the less sharp yet the more robust the knife. Japanese knives, typically quite narrow at 15 to 17 degrees per side. Western cooking knives, typically 20 to 22 degrees per side. Hunting knife, a little tougher at 22 to 25 degrees per side. And survival knives, typically 25 to 30 degrees per side. So it's all a matter of what the purpose of the knife is. But when it comes to Western style knives, 20 to 22 degrees is a safe bet. When you're using the Tormek system, it's easy to ensure you have the right angle using their Angle Master. And of course, if you're already comfortable with your existing angle, then you simply need to recreate that one. Number two, incorrect positioning. Creating your angle is all about holding the knife at the correct position. That's why jigs are so wonderful, because if you're doing something freehand, even though you think you're getting the right angle, chances are you are not. And even if you were holding it freehand at the right angle, it's hard to maintain that over time, and it's hard to get consistent results that way. Here I'm using the Tormek knife jig. I first connect it to my knife, then set the height of the tool rest to get the right angle. Then I simply lean on the tool rest, maintaining contact at all times. And I move through the length of the blade while maintaining consistent pressure. When we come to the edge here, what you naturally want to do is just kind of go backwards with your shoulder. A better option than leaning backwards is to just go up. Up. And then I turn it around and do the other side. I try to make sure I see the waterline straight across the width of the knife the whole time. It's easy to accidentally lean a bit too much on one side, and that's what you want to avoid. If you see the waterline across the knife, you know that it is even. Mistake number three, inconsistent pressure. So this is when you're applying uneven pressure while sharpening, resulting in an uneven edge. Or you might think that, oh, I don't even use the whole knife, I only really just cut right there. That means the edge will be inconsistent, with some areas sharper than others, and this can lead to a poor cutting performance and may even cause the knife to veer off course while cutting. So you want to make sure you apply consistent pressure along the entire length of the blade when sharpening. Problem number four, using the wrong grit. So the problem here is if you start with too fine or too coarse a grit, which can either take too long to sharpen or wear down the knife too soon. What grit you're starting with really depends on the state of your knife. If it is very dull or even damaged, you definitely want to make sure you start with a coarse grit. I'm using diamond stones on my Tormek, so I'm picking the coarse grit stone. If I was using the universal grindstone, I would set it using the stone grater to the coarser grit. Then once you've gone through the coarse, you can move to the fine and then the very fine. If the knife is not too dull, you can start with finer grit right away. But you don't want to start with too fine a grit with a dull knife. It will take too long and you won't have a good result, as existing nicks and chips on the knife will remain. And also, without that initial coarse grit to set the edge, the fine grit stone just cannot adequately sharpen the blade. So the result is a poorly defined edge that doesn't cut efficiently. Problem number five, skipping honing. Okay, so you've gone through the stages of sharpening your knife. It is beautiful. However, you are still left with a burr. A burr is like a really, really fine layer of metal that is on the opposite side of where you've been sharpening. If you're unsure whether or not you have a burr, you can just carefully run the knife over your nail and you can feel any kind of bumps or inconsistencies that way, and that's the burr. The solution to this is honing. So to hone here, we have on the Tormek system, you simply run your knife on the honing wheel. This is a composite wheel, so I don't even need any compound. So you want to have the wheel going away from you. You just put it on top, hold it steady. You don't need a jig for this, and just kind of go through the thing. And you will just remove that slight, thin metal burr.
Mistake number 6, overheating the blade.
So here's another common mistake, that you sharpen too aggressively and you cause the metal to become too hot, so it loses its temper or hardness. Now that's not really an issue when you're using like the Tormek T8 here, which is cooled down with water. If you're using a dry sharpening system, however, you want to be mindful of this and take breaks throughout your sharpening. Don't do too long sessions, and perhaps even dip it in water in between to make sure it doesn't get too hot.
Mistake number 7, rushing the process. This is when you're trying to sharpen too quickly, resulting in poor technique and subpar results.
I have done this. You think, okay, I'm just going to sharpen real quick, but that's never a good idea. You want to make sure you take your time setting up the bevel, setting up your jig, going through the grits. Don't skip a grit. If your knives are dull, do the honing, be mindful of your motions, do it as many times as you're going to need it. This little knife I use more than any other knives, I'd say. I got the coarse grit on now.
Mistake number 8, sharpening too frequently.
Another mistake, not applying to everybody, but sharpening too frequently. If you're getting really into sharpening your knives and you do it like all the time, you're going to wear them down too quickly. If that is the case, may I suggest doing more honing than sharpening. If you do honing sessions in between your real sharpening, you're going to maintain that edge beautifully and you're not going to wear down your blades nearly as quickly. In fact, you can get really far just doing honing. So, did I miss any common mistakes that you tend to do when sharpening knives? Let me know in the comments below. I'll see you guys soon. I'm always curious after I've done a sharpening session, how much metal did I use? How much did I remove? You can see right here. Let me show you real quick. So see that fuzzy stuff right there? That is metal shavings. And there's a magnet here, so it is attracted. This is all the stuff that used to be on our knives and now is in here.